Overrated versus underrated from last year's driver models. There's some absolute steals in this list. It always fascinates me after the new releases of drivers come out, how well their predecessors do in the second-hand market and what clubs are actually underrated and the value that you can get from them, considering some of these drivers were upwards of £450 8 months ago. So we're going to go through the big name brands and which ones I recommend for you guys in terms of value for money. I'm not saying any of these drivers are bad, and a lot of you guys will have these already in the bag. And if they work for you, then great, money well spent. But if you're looking to spend a fraction of what a brand new driver costs and which one would be best suited to you and your golf game, this is the video that you're going to want to watch. Up first, we have the Cobra LTD X, and as you can see, trending price of this driver is around £180 to £220, which is pretty good value. However, I would say there are some better options out there throughout this list, either better performance on the general public, as I've spoken to many club fitters and many professionals that have sold these clubs over the year. And when it comes to head types and shaft combinations, there's just certain combos that work better for the general public. That being said, I feel like this is one of the best looking Cobra drivers that have come out for an incredibly long time. Not to mention the LTD X LS version, I do feel is a very good driver for you guys with a higher club head speed. And typically for those kind of players, the drivers are more sought after, i.e. your Callaway and your TaylorMade are going to be more expensive, probably £100 more expensive. And I do feel like this is a good version for you guys with a higher swing speed type. When it comes to overrated versus underrated, I'd say it's properly rated for the price that it's going for. One thing's for certain, however, looking at old Cobra drivers, if you do snap up this driver for around £180, it's probably going to be worth £150 in, well, the next 2 years. Up next, we have the TaylorMade Stealth, and I'm going to put this in the overrated category. Even though a couple of weeks ago, I was hitting absolute bombs with this thing, and there's no question this is a low spin, high launch driver that is going to bomb it out there. I don't think the carbon face necessarily makes any difference when it comes to the distance overall, but there is one thing certain when it comes to TaylorMade golf clubs is that you are paying for the name. I wouldn't say it's the best looking driver through this list as well, and this is the most expensive one as well through the list, ranging from around £240 to £280. One thing that is somewhat concerning is the amount of brand new Stealth drivers that are currently being sold on the second-hand market, meaning there is an abundance of stock still out there, and I wouldn't be surprised if the price keeps on dropping throughout the year. If you look at the TaylorMade Sim 2, for example, which to be honest in my eyes looks like a better driver and potentially £100 cheaper than what I'm holding here, I think if you're looking for a TaylorMade Stealth or TaylorMade Stealth Plus, I personally would wait another 6 to 7 months, as you'll be picking up for relatively the same amount of money. Not saying it's a bad driver, but compared to the rest of the options through this list, I think there's better money to be spent elsewhere. I had the pleasure of trying this driver throughout the year, and I was pleasantly surprised from the Callaway Rogue ST. It arguably is one of the best looking drivers in my opinion. It ticked all the boxes in terms of sound, forgiveness and feel off the club face, and to be fair, that explains its price in the second-hand market, ranging from £240 to £260. Again, one of the more expensive options, but I do find the second-hand market tells all. People looking for it, keeping it, not necessarily selling it on. And when you put that against all the older models of Callaway drivers like the Epic Speed or the Maverick that plummet in price in previous history, maybe this one has got something different about it. People are liking it a lot more, and people are keeping it in the bag for longer, meaning a lower supply and a higher demand. I'm actually going to put this in the underrated section, which I can't believe I'm saying for around a £240 price tag, but I do feel the price of this driver is going to hold well, and because it does look, feel and sound good, when I put it up against potentially the £569 Callaway Paradigm driver, I feel like this one could be classed as underrated. Moving on to another big name in golf, the Ping G425. Done incredibly well over the last 2 years, obviously released back in 2021. And apart from the sound issue, there is no question that this has gone down very well with the amateur golfers. This driver's held its price around the £320 mark, which is incredible if you think about it. That being said, it has definitely dropped over the last 3 to 4 months with the new release of the Ping G430. Carbon crown potentially sounds better, even though I haven't tested myself, but the performance elements are gonna still all be there, around 220 to 240 pounds. And when you look at the big names in golf, TaylorMade, Callaway, Titleist, this is arguably one of the cheaper options. And when it comes to shaft options in the Ping driver and the head types, for you guys that don't necessarily hit it a mile, but just looking to offset that slice as well as ultimate forgiveness, I do feel like the Ping G425 is a good driver. However, with that rather positive feedback, just like the Callaway, I have to compare it to older models. And to be honest, I don't think the Ping G425 does anything different to the Ping G400 Max, which you can get for a lot cheaper, even though finding a good condition one would be slightly harder. Not to mention the G400, I think personally sounds better. Therefore, I'm going to put the G425 at around 220 to 240 pounds in the properly, potentially overrated category. And the only reason that I'm saying that is because Ping have been making great drivers like this for an incredibly long time. So unless you really want something from them that's been made in the last 2 years, there are cheaper options such as the G series and G400 series that kind of do the same thing. Moving on to my shock category, which I couldn't believe the price that this is going for. And to be honest, at this point, I sound like a PXG fanboy, but the prices are just ridiculous, and I just can't get away from that fact. I tested this driver last year, potentially 10 months ago, the PXG Gen 5. This retailed at £449, floated around £250 at one point when I actually did the video saying it's great value, and this driver itself is currently going for £140 to £180, and as I've shown you with the listings here, there's a good amount of them. But with the new Gen 6 driver out on the market, people are selling it, and it's a good driver. I love the feel, I love the sound. I potentially wouldn't get any more distance from that than the 0211 driver that I've got at the moment, but the head options are more versatile in the Gen 5. If you want the XF version for the extra forgiveness, plus the multiple head options, there is a lot more selection to be had, and I would have to say, in terms of aesthetics, the Gen 5 driver definitely looks better. It has to go in my heavily underrated option for 2023 with a driver that's just come out last year, as it's potentially 30% of the price when it was first released. And I have to be brutally honest, do think about that if you were to buy a Gen 6 driver this year, knowing full well it's probably going to be half its value in the next 10 months, especially if you don't get on with it or the swing changes that you might have with it going forward. Talking of a big name brand that doesn't do well in the second-hand market for a similar kind of price tag, we have to talk about the Mizuno ST-Z or STX drivers. Again, very similar aesthetics, very similar sound and look to the PXG, and arguably going for even less, £120 I've seen some of these drivers go for, even in brand new condition, which is just astonishing. It's one thing that I warn a lot of people about when buying a brand new driver, and to be fair to Titleist, Ping and TaylorMade, the name does hold. You buy a Stealth driver last year for £450 or £500, it's still going for £260, £270 if you weren't to get on with it. However, with the Mizuno, you could have bought it for £400, and now it's worth £120, £160. But for some of you guys looking to upgrade your bag before the summer season, this thing looks clean, it looks good. I've hit it, I've tested it. Potentially isn't the longest or the most forgiving. However, if you're looking to upgrade your Ping G10 or potentially your Titleist 913, this is a very good option with multiple good shafts to go in it. I have to put it in the underrated category, considering the price that you can get this driver for. Lastly, we have to talk about Titleist, and this is going to go in overrated and underrated at the same time. The overrated section, prices has held quite well for the options of the TSi3 and the TSi2, more popular heads, let's say, and this all comes down to auctions and buy it nows, and you have to take the averages out 230 to 240 pounds for those popular head designs. I love the driver, I've tested the driver, but to be honest, I don't see any difference between that and the TS series, which, let's be honest, you can get for around £100 at the moment. And honestly, I would save your money, go for a better condition head, grip, shaft combination in the TS version opposed to the TSi range. That being said, the TSi 1, the super forgiving, the offset, the weight very much at the back, goes for a similar price tag to the TS series, 120, 140, 160 pounds. And for you complete beginners wanting a driver that came out last year that was upwards of 450 pounds, you could put a gleaming head cover, big name brand at the top end of the bag, and not spend more than 150 pounds doing it. Hence why I've got the TSi range in the overrated and the underrated section at the same time. If I missed anything or you'd like to leave a comment down below of what you found in the market over the last couple of weeks or so, please do. And if you like this video, you might like to see my bargain drivers for £100 in the year 2023.